Morning, everybody. Action-packed edition of this program, The Morning Meeting with Dan, Sean, and myself, to talk about a big day. The storm bearing down on Florida is going to be a huge political story. As always, our concern is for the people in the path. Major American city threatened by what could be an unprecedentedly large storm. The reality is that it's also going to be a major have major implications for the campaigns, particularly for the campaign with the incumbent vice president. We're going to talk about that. Big schedule today. Donald Trump was supposed to be doing a Univision town hall. That was canceled because of the storm, or rescheduled, I should say. So as of now, we don't know of any public events for him. However, the vice president here in Gotham City, boom, 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 11 o'clock does The View live. Interesting to see, beyond what they ask her, how much of the program she gets in studio here on the Upper West Side. 1 o'clock live with Howard Stern here in New York. And then 6 o'clock, she tapes Colbert, and then I believe heads back to DC, but her schedule does not say that. Tim Walz, 9:30 Eastern Time rally in Reno. J.D. Vance has a event in Detroit City at 2 o'clock, delivers remarks. Doug Imhoff is in Los Angeles and Phoenix and doing a number of events out there. Melania Trump book come out today. Joe Biden is doing a storm-related event, making remarks about both the aftermath of Helene and preparations for Milton at 10:15 Eastern Time. Then he departs for Wisconsin and does an event there related to replacing lead pipes. Then he goes to Philadelphia to do an event with his friend Bob Casey, who's in a tight race there. Last night's 60 Minutes interview we're going to talk about there. You can read, you can watch it on YouTube in its entirety. Guys, I want to talk first about the hurricane and then remind everybody, welcome in. If you've never raised your hand, I see some new people with their hands up. Please turn your cameras on. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome. And feel free to participate in the chat if you wish. As always, peace, love, and understanding. We're not here to call each other names and fight. We're here to learn from each other. And if you're on the YouTube or the two-way platform, as Phoebe is, your hand up, please raise your hand. We'd love to get as many of you new people in as possible to hear from different voices. We like our old voices too, though. So thank you, folks, for raising your hands. Now, hurricane. So we talked about, and we continue to talk about, the dealing with the aftermath, particularly because it's hit two battleground states. Florida, not a battleground state. The New York Times new poll suggests it's really not a battleground state. But let me ask you, Dan, if you're the Harris campaign, are you starting to think about pulling your negative ads down? Are you starting to think about getting her back to DC? Are you starting to think about planning to go visit Florida? Like, how much is this now part of the calculation for them?
It has to be part of the calculation. I think that, being back in DC, being on your toes, being responsive, she tried to reach out to Governor DeSantis. There's already been kind of a political back and forth about how genuine that effort was. But I think, you have to walk and chew gum as the leader, and she will need to be attentive as this storm barrels down.
Don?
Yeah, this is sort of an interesting line that I think the vice president walked, right? I mean, in a traditional, if this wasn't 30 days out from an election, if this was a year ago, nobody would be asking what the vice president is doing, right? This is not a traditional role of the vice president. So it's an awkward place for her to be, because on the one hand, politically, you got to look like you're doing stuff. But the reality is no one's, in a time of crisis, no one goes, where's the vice president? Get me the vice, just right. So I say that because she's got to figure out, it's a weird role for her to navigate at this stage. She needs to overcompensate and do things even though she really doesn't have a role, because it's more about appearance and perception.
And look, Florida is also going to be hard because DeSantis is hyper political. I mean, you can see this going sideways very quickly.
Yeah. So the Trump campaign has tried to define Kamala Harris as weak, failed, dangerously liberal. And I think the real danger for her right now, because of what's happening in North Carolina and Georgia, is I think most of us thought the focus would be on dangerously liberal. But this threatens to put in sharp relief weak and failed, and tying her to the Biden record, right? This can't, whether they started this before the storms or not, I'm still trying to piece together. But tying her to the Biden record with the reality that both storms are so immense, and we'll hope for minimal damage, obviously, for the new one, but they're so immense that the best FEMA in the world couldn't satisfy the people on the ground. And while the national media has downplayed that, the social media, egged on by Donald Trump and his allies, saying it's a failed effort. That's politics. The disinformation and lies is unfortunate, but I don't know that people could expect anything different from any campaign at this phase. I really think she's in danger of trying to figure out how to not look weak and failed in reaction to these storms. It's just a reality of the situation. She's doing all this media. She did 60 Minutes last night. She's just trying to get through these interviews, right? She wasn't trying to, there's no soundbite. There's no offensive soundbite. It's just don't screw up. And Whitaker was very firm in asking with a great tone. I thought he did a fantastic job of asking good questions and follow-ups. And her answers, if you're a Harris fan, you could say her answers were fine. But most people I know thought her answers were, she didn't have a Lester Holt moment, but they didn't produce anything positive. The coverage of it is minimal. And I don't know how big the audience was. So today she's got 3 big audiences. And so, Sean, here's my question. How do you define success? If you're the Harris campaign and you want to make the case 60 Minutes was successful, successful is influencing people in Green Bay. We can't measure. We can't know how undecided voters in Green Bay experienced it. So how do you know if that was a success? And how will she know if The View and Howard and Colbert are successes?
Well, so I think there's a different metric. So first of all, I just want to say this from a guy who pretty much has nothing positive to say about legacy media. I thought Bill Whitaker did a phenomenal job last night. I've seen him in a lot of interviews, and so credit where credit is due. He man, that guy came with his A game. He asked I thought the questions were good. They backed up. I mean, like, anyway, just if you haven't seen it, he should, you do a really great job of discerning what a good question is and how to get someone to respond. And last night I thought he did that.
I agree.
Secondly, I think you're right. I felt like even the most basic answers, she kind of was pivoting all over the place. Same thing with Tim Walz, by the way. Nothing good out of that. There's a difference with the podcasts and the shows. The metric of success, like, so for Howard Stern and The View, like, you're catering to an audience where you're trying to get across the personal side of yourself, that you're a fun person, you go outside and have time with your family, you reassure them in the personal qualities that people want to see, that whole existential question of who would you like to have a beer with. So I think the metric of success for an interview like that is a little different from a success of a 60 Minutes interview, which you touched on a few weeks ago, which is when you wake up, are there headlines either promoting what you said, saying Harris outlines economic policy, Harris outlines this, or Harris eviscerates Donald Trump. You got neither of those from 60 Minutes. So that to me was not a success. The metric of success on these other things is, do people come across saying, wow, I didn't know that about her. I liked her. Like when I watched the Theo Von podcast with Donald Trump, a couple of the other, I was like, wow, he comes across, he allowed people a little window into who he was as a person that I enjoyed watching. I think those move the needle forward. So those are sort of my metrics of success. I don't think 60 Minutes was, and we'll see. I also think the Stern one is not, I would not have chosen that one if I were her. I get the View, the other ones, those are smart. They play to a gender gap that's huge, and where she has a great issue to really press on abortion. Howard Stern, I think, if I were her team, I'm going to be holding my breath, crossing my fingers.
No. You need, if you haven't, go listen to his interview with Joe Biden and his recent interviews with Hillary Clinton. That'll be easier than the View interview.
Okay.
I'm telling you, that's what Howard has become in interviewing Democrats. It's quite something. So I see in the chat, which I don't normally look at, but a few things caught my eye. We're talking about Harris a lot on this program for a couple reasons. Okay. We know what Trump is. We don't need to spend every episode talking about January 6th. We'll talk about it if people want to bring it up. What's happening now with Kamala Harris is this is an experiment. Can you win a short campaign with an untested candidate? And what I'm telling you is happening in private polling is she's got a problem now. Okay. It's not cheering for Trump. It's not predicting Trump will win. She's got a problem. Please bring up the New York Times poll. So the New York Times poll shows her up 3 nationally. We all know that 3 is like the bubble point, right? If she's up 3, she's got a chance to win the Electoral College, but they'd rather be at 4, and they don't want to be at 2. So 3 is right at the bubble. I'm not saying this Times poll is right. It's in line with other national polls. Now, bring up 102. Wall Street Journal has a story about Democrats really worried about the 3 Rust Belt states. We all know from our contacts in both campaigns that Pennsylvania is tough for her right now. And without Pennsylvania, there are paths, but there aren't many. There's no path without Wisconsin. So you see here, Tammy Baldwin's Senate campaign poll shows Harris down 3 in Wisconsin. We all said yesterday, Wisconsin and Michigan are looking worse for Harris than before. Baldwin has her down 3. Not Baldwin has Harris down 3. Why is the Baldwin campaign sharing its polling with the Wall Street Journal? Good question. Sean, why would a campaign share their polling negative for their candidate? Because they want more visits? Is that the reason?
I mean, I think part of this is like a Hillary Clinton redux, which is that you want to make sure people understand what's going on. Plus, you're tied to it. Tammy Baldwin can't win if Kamala Harris loses.
She can.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, she can. She can. I think.
Okay. Well,
in a close race, she can.
Okay, maybe it's not a
Dan.
5,000 vote squeaker, but I think part of this is to make sure that they understand this. But I will say this, off topic, Alyssa Slotkin said the same thing last week in Michigan. Like this is
Correct.
what we were talking about the other day. This
Correct.
is a
Correct.
They are sending.
I think that's the challenge for Democrats is the trend lines, right? I mean, if you just go back now for the last 3 to 4 weeks in Michigan and in Wisconsin, not that Harris was up, 7 and it went down to 4, down to 1. It's gone from 3 to 2 to 1 to tied. And at the same time, those Senate candidates, Casey, Slotkin, and Baldwin, are seeing the same trend line.
All much closer.
By the way,
so you do it to sound the alarm bell. You are sounding the alarm bell in the party.
Yeah, Mark, Dan's right, but I could just little asterisk point. I don't want to go on this, but I think it was funny a week ago. You had Chuck Schumer and the D-Trip kind of are the DSCC pivot and say we're going to bail on Montana and go after Texas and Florida on offense. And here they are 7 days later going, oh crap. I mean, I just get a kick out of this because after November 5th, we may look back and say, wow, that was a horrible mistake not to fortify the trenches.
I think that move by Schumer was all designed to prevent people from throwing the towel in at the DSCC and all shifting to DCCC.
I know.
And lobbyists switching just to Republicans. They have to pretend they can win the majority. They have to have a path to talk through. For you Harris people on here complaining that we're talking about problems in the Harris campaign, you're welcome to put your head in the sand about it. If you want to go watch MSNBC primetime and hear how great things are going for the Harris campaign, you're welcome to do that. But if you want to understand what's actually happening, we're here to tell you. I just saw some new private polling today. That's very robust private polling. She's in a lot of trouble. Here's how I framed it this morning in my newsletter. The conversation I'm having with Trump people and Democrats with data are extremely bullish on Trump's chances in the last 48 hours. Extremely bullish. You think of the 7 battleground states. Which ones is Harris in danger of losing? I would say Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia. I'm not saying she'll lose all 6, but she's in danger. The only one that the Democrats say she's not in danger of losing is the one I never say the name of because I can't pronounce it. But it's where Las Vegas is, right? You guys agree with me? She could lose any of those 6, right? I mean, she could lose all 7, but Democrats will tell you they're worried about those 6. They're less worried about the 7th. Yeah. I don't know any Trump person who says they're worried about losing any of the 7. They don't know that they don't necessarily think they're the favorite in Michigan and Wisconsin, but they're not worried about losing them. Right. You don't hear from them, oh my goodness. What you hear is we're moving up. What the 3 of us are hearing. We're moving up in those 2. We're gonna win the 3 Sunbelt states, and we're stronger in Pennsylvania than she is. That to me, if the whole thing's about the Electoral College, you take any of the Rust Belt states away from her, it's very difficult for her to win. Very difficult. It's not mathematically impossible, but it probably won't happen if she loses any of them. So now, she can replace Pennsylvania with either Georgia, North Carolina, and then one other of the Sunbelt states.
Nevada. Yep.
Well, any of them. If she wins, if she loses Pennsylvania and she wins either Georgia or North Carolina, then she just needs one of the other 3. And that's not impossible. But what I'm telling you today is things are not moving right for her. And if you think today's interviews are going to fix it, then you're optimistic about her performance in interviews, where her best interviews are where nothing horrible happens. She's not driving a message. Now, speaking of message, Harris campaign puts out ads every day, it seems, and lots of them, which is good because you can A/B test them and you can try to target them to particular people. But it does raise the question. We know the Trump campaign has 4 words to describe their negative frame on Harris, which, as I said before, might be too many. But we're going to look at two Harris ads that are different messages. And I want to talk to you about, what do you guys think at the back half of the two ads? What do you think the Harris frame is, the primary frame on Trump? Is it we're not going back? Is that specific enough? We'll talk about it. Raise your hand if you want to get in, because after we look at these ads, we're going to you all. So let's play back to back, please, 103 and 104.
My mother, she's a diabetic, so she really needs her insulin every day. If Donald Trump is elected, healthcare could be too expensive for us to pay for. He is threatening to terminate the Affordable Care Act. Thanks to Kamala Harris, my mom can afford her insulin. She helped cut the cost of prescription drugs and protected the Affordable Care Act. Kamala Harris knows healthcare is important. She believes we all deserve a fair shot, and she's making it happen.
We believe in a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. Where every senior can retire with dignity. Where every person has affordable health care and paid family leave. But Donald Trump wants to take our country backward, to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations and end the Affordable Care Act. But we are not going back.
All right. I continue to be amazed. Neither campaign or really anyone has produced a viral ad yet, which is amazing to me. We may get to the end without that. But here's my question. What is the Harris message? Is it Trump is going to take away your health care? Is it he will take us back? Like, if the Trump message is 4 words, which is failed, weak, failed, dangerously liberal. Dan, say you were doing your best job to explain this. What is her main negative frame on Trump?
It's that we're not going backwards. And that is it, because they believe that people have everyone knows Trump. Everyone has an opinion.
But we're not going backwards. We're not going backwards on what? Because his economic policies, some people like. We're not going backwards on January 6th, on chaos. What are we not going backwards on?
I think, Mark,
either say what you say, either or both. What are they trying to convey, or what should they convey? What aren't we going back to? Chaos?
Well, those are two, right. And that is the challenge you just hit, which is that to the voters who are undecided, they liked the Trump economy. They felt he kept us safe. So when she keeps saying we're not going backwards, I'm not sure exactly who they're trying to persuade. Now they're introducing healthcare. That is an interesting thing, because it's not resonating as the top of mind for voters. I don't think people view their healthcare as under threat right now, right? So it may be that Trump, who did try to take it away the first time and was not successful, and now is claiming like nothing to see here. But I'm not sure necessarily what that, who they're trying to motivate with that message. But that is it, Mark. Backwards is just, you have a negative image of Trump, and Democrats for 4 years have said to themselves, 50.1% will never vote for this guy again. Biden believed it, and it appears that's what Harris is riding down the home stretch. And
I'll just make one. So let me just make one point. When the Biden people said in 21, we pray Trump runs, we pray Trump is a nominee, because no one who voted for Biden in 20 is going to vote for Trump in 24. I said, really? No one? And it was like, find me one. And now you can walk out of your door in any city in America and find people who voted for Biden in 20 who are going to vote for Trump. So
100%.
not going back is it would have been great in 21, but I don't get what they're selling, Sean.
I'm with you on this. To me, when you talk to most people, right, and again, I know people minds are going to blow, but most people go, great, I want to go back to lower interest rates. I want to go back to more prosperity. I want to go back to less chaos in foreign policy. To me, I feel like that's a Trump ad. Like right now, they're saying, make America great again. I mean, they might as well put out a MAGA cap. But I think, and I will say this on that last ad, I've given Kamala and her team a lot of credit on the well-produced ads. Where she spoke to camera a few ago, I thought it was very powerful for her. Like that one, it was like, that sounded like a political ad. It was like, I'm going to stand here and preach to you and tell you a bunch of words that are poll tested. I don't think that was compelling at all. The other one where she stood and said, I'm a prosecutor, it actually, I think, was compelling and engaging as an ad.
Yeah, I agree.
Not so much.
I agree. All right.
Can I just add, Mark, because you said before, as a Democrat, I take no joy saying that these ads whiff and that she is struggling. But for all the people who say, David Axelrod came out, James Carville has come out, Gretchen Whitmer has come out. Like, there are more and more Democrats saying something needs to change. And Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were very, very aggressive when they had a negative to jump on it and confront it. And I think what's maddening to a lot of Democrats is they see the problems and the Harris campaign waves them off and just says, we're going straight forward.
Mark, one thing that's really interesting when we talk about ads and messages, and this because I'm a political dork. Last night I pulled out this review of what they called the CAVE, the Obama Data and Analytics Analysis from 2012, and I was reading through it because we had studied it very, very closely about how well they really used data and analytics in the 12 Obama race to really fine tune the message, to tweak things. I mean, it was literally a college course in the making of how well to do things, right? And I feel like, and part of the end of the presentation was, okay, what is the next evolution? Because too many times Republicans are fighting the last battle. And I think about it in the context now, 2024, over 10 years later, and the Harris campaign has moved backwards. Like, this should have been a data-driven, like, this is moving the needle with these people because of this. And I'm surprised at how well Obama had done with the use of data and analytics in 12, that we've 12 years later not gotten to the point where they could literally tell you this ad plays with these people and moves this demographic in this way. It just, just to be, I hear what you're saying, but just to be fair to them, they're doing more of that than you see, because this campaign, like the Biden campaign, they don't leak. You don't have their data analytics people out there doing interviews about how brilliant they are. They're just quietly doing the work, but they also haven't figured it out yet because they're running 17 different messages, but they're trying. They're trying. Phoebe, could you unmute?
Yeah.
There you go. Tell folks
Hi.
who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
Okay, so I'm Phoebe. I'm registered to vote in California, but I live in London, UK. I've lived here for a long time. And I sent my absentee ballot in for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for him before. And yeah, I kind of have a civics question, and that's related to the discussion between Dan from California and Jeremy from Missouri that you had on yesterday. I think as a mother of young children, I could really identify with Jeremy when he talked about the economic pressure he was feeling. But sometimes I think it makes me wonder if we impute too much power to the president, in relation to the economy. And so my question is, I mean, it's kind of a civics question, but how specifically, in all your years of observing politics, of being in politics, I mean, when have you seen a direct correlation between what the president actually does and a positive impact on the economy? Sometimes I think the messaging is so simplistic. I mean, like when Kamala says the end of the Trump administration, the economy was terrible, implying that it was all Trump's fault. And we all, I mean, basically gaslighting because we knew it was COVID. We know it's COVID. I mean, there's just so many factors. So I sometimes think the messaging is just so simplistic that they underestimate the intelligence of the American people. And I just wonder if more complex messaging is better.
So the phrase I always use, which I take from Bill Bradley when he ran for president, is a good steward of a good economy. They're not running the economy. But I think if you look at the fundamentals, a lot of it has to do with just job owning and business leaders and investors and people who make decisions in the economy, feeling that the president has an understanding, a theory of the case. Bill Clinton said, we're gonna cut taxes for the middle class. We're going to raise taxes on the wealthiest. We're going to reduce the deficit to restore confidence in the American system. We're going to unleash technological development, economy of the future. He's the first president I covered, and I'm pretty familiar with his ability to talk about that, to give people who make the economy go confident that federal policies would foster more economic growth. And so they get too much credit when things are going well, too little credit, too much blame when things are going bad. But I do think there's no one more influential in making the American economy work. So is it less influential than people say? Yes, but it's still the most influential. And I think when we've had economic success, like under Bill Clinton, you can look at his policies and attribute at least some of the success, I'd say a fair amount, to what he did. Dan or Sean?
Yeah. I mean, like we say in a lot of things, sometimes it's fair, unfair. Politics is about perception. When you hire a leader, right or wrong, you want them to they get some of the credit that they don't deserve, and they get some of the blame that they don't deserve, but that's the nature of the job.
Yeah. I'll actually just add too. I actually thought that Trump kind of leaning into, I'm going to cut regulation, I'm going to really lean on companies to bring jobs back. and his about also on energy. Like I think he did move the needle a little bit on companies bringing manufacturing jobs back. He does deserve credit for that.
Phoebe, thank you for the great question. Much appreciated. Justin, welcome in. Tell folks where you are, who you're supporting, what's on your mind, please.
I'm in Maine, 2nd congressional district, so one that may have a little bit of an impact depending on how it all goes. I am a Trump voter, used to live in Florida, moved up here during COVID for family, but my kind of perspective on everything.
Justin, are you voted for your incumbent Congressman Jared Golden or not?
He's done a good job in Maine, I feel like, to make him feel like he's middle of the road. But I'm not going to be voting for him. He did come out against, for an assault weapons ban recently, and I don't support that for many reasons. Obviously, there's things we can do on guns, but I'm going to be voting for Theriot. I don't think he has the name recognition, but I think he's got a real strong chance, especially if Trump pulls a 9 or 10% lead in the 2nd congressional district.
You're a savvy Maine 2 voter, my friend. That's a lot of good stuff. Thank you. What's your question?
I just was going to say, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone on here knows that Trump runs his mouth and he says a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, what is Trump doing right now? And you can kind of get a pulse on the race. And the same thing on the Kamala side. It's not what they're saying, it's what they're doing. Trump just announced a rally in California. Why is he going to California if he thinks that the swing states are problematic? I mean, I'm not saying he has it in the bag. I'm not saying anything like that, but it's a pretty big tell to say that you're having a big rally in California less than 30 days out from a massive election. And I think you can say the same thing on the Harris side. It's very interesting. I just want to know what Sean and Dan say. I really love this platform because, I trust both of these guys to give their real feelings, and it doesn't feel like I'm watching MSNBC or Fox. I'm getting, the real thing. So I just appreciate that. I think it's really cool. But my general question is, what do you guys think about what is actually being done and not necessarily what's being said by the campaigns? Trump's in California and Kamala's going on all these podcasts and all these things that people have been telling her to do for months.
Right.
I'll
Justin,
let Sean talk about Coachella.
Hold on one second. Justin, how'd you find the morning meeting in two-way?
I think it popped up on X, and you guys have been shared a little bit. I honestly think this should be 50 times more popular, and there should be thousands more watching, and hopefully that will happen in time.
Thank you for that, Sean. Why is the President Trump going to California?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for watching, and thanks for voting for Austin Theriot. And please share with your friends, because that's where I think most of the people who come to the morning meeting, they see it, but then when they share with their friends, that's the best thing to do. So here's what I believe is probably happening. Republicans raise a lot of money in non-battleground states, California, Texas, New York, Florida, obviously. But so when you're there, how do you maximize time? And I think a lot of times it's, hey, Mr. President, we'll do a rally while we're here. Unlike New York, where you can make the case that there's a lot of swing districts there are swing districts, obviously, in California, I think 26, 52. There's a bunch of them, but they're not looking for Donald Trump to help them out right there in California. So my guess is that this is a way to utilize time while you're there, because you're raising a lot of money out there. I would hope.
Yeah. Dan, you want to add anything?
If he wears Coachella attire at the thing. Look, I think for Harris,
you think Coachella Burning Man?
Oh, right. Thank you. Look, I am curious that Harris is not going to be in the Midwest this week. I've noticed as of now she's not, Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. And as far as doing these, podcasts and whatnot, they are trying to reach undecided voters however they can, and they feel that's a good use of her time.
Yeah. Justin, thank you, man. I appreciate your kind words about the platform. And as Sean said, please make sure everyone in Mainz 2 is watching this. Thank you. Before we go to David, two things. One is warn our affiliates, we are going to run a little bit over. And two, the top aide to the mayor of New York City has just resigned. So that's another resignation. So more pressure on the mayor to quit. We'll see if he does. David, tell folks where you are, who you're supporting for president, and what's on your mind, please.
Oregon, and Trump will be voting for Trump again this time. See if you guys have any inside baseball on this, on the what happened over the weekend or last Friday with Biden coming out and speaking in the. I don't think you've covered this when he spoke at the same time Kamala was speaking, and he did when the press gave a press briefing.
So,
is there some inside stuff going on there? How do they feel about it?
Yeah. Let me do that one, and then we'll get Annie in. Look, Joe Biden wants her to win. There's no psychodrama there, but he wants the credit. He wants her to win in part because he wants Trump not to be president, but he wants his record to be validated. And this incredible story on CNN over the weekend, which quoted anonymous Biden aides as saying, if Biden were still the nominee, he'd be doing as well or better. And that was met with disbelief by the Harris people. She's not, as Dan pointed out, in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Biden is today. And if the Trump campaign is running against Biden-Harris and about weak and failed, I think they're delighted to have Joe Biden out there. And I don't know how the Harris campaign feels about that. According to the CNN story, or maybe it was an NBC story, they gave the Harris campaign like a short heads up that he was going in the briefing room. They didn't coordinate it. There's a lot of coordination, but maybe not as much as there might be. And I think you're onto something, basically, David. There's something going on there that's potentially very problematic for her, if you believe, as I do, that, and as the Trump people do, that it's not the greatest thing in the world for Kamala Harris to have Joe Biden out campaigning. Thank you for that.
Thank you,
David. Annie, come on in. Tell folks, unmute, please. Tell folks where you are, who don't know, who you're supporting, what's on your mind.
Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in Texas and I'm supporting Trump. And I have two questions. My first one is, Vice President going after DeSantis kind of seems like something Trump would do. And it just seems interesting that she's picking a fight with a governor that's about to get hit with a huge hurricane. And I remember a couple months ago that you guys were talking that if Trump just kind of keeps his mouth shut and doesn't cause any problems, which he was doing a couple months ago, he has a better shot. And do you think he's done better in the last couple of months than he has before?
Good questions. Sean, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I'll take the last one first and then work backwards. I think, look, in 2016, he in the last 5 or 6 weeks, he really just stayed laser focused. I think that was critical in closing the gap. I think he is not as good as he was in 2016 in terms of staying completely focused, but he's in there. And as long as he stays in that zone, I feel great about where we are. We talked already about the trends in some of these key states. So I feel good. As far as the DeSantis folks, I think one of the things that we try to strive for on this platform is to explain to you guys, Mark said at the insight, what's happening and not necessarily justify it, but explain it to you. And so I think that Ron DeSantis saw the Chris Christie movie, and he's trying to make sure that he preserves his political capital for the future. He's not taking a call. He doesn't need to suffer Trump's ire by getting a phone call and say, why are you helping her? Why are you doing this? He doesn't need the base going after him. So he's saying, hey, she's not in charge. She's not the president. I'm not going to play this little political game. And so I want people to understand that, but I think you're also right. Like goes back to what I said at the outset. She's trying to figure out what her role is. She's going to get criticized if she doesn't do enough, but then she's going to, so this is a very tough spot for her to be in. But I will tell you that, like, we all saw the mayor of Tampa last night and some of these other warnings. What's going on in Florida scares the living, out of me. And I think that how this is handled by the federal government will be critical. And so to your point, like this relationship, how Ron DeSantis handles it vis-a-vis the government is going to be important, because I think Biden's got to jump in at some point because he is the president. And so the dynamic over the next 72, 96 hours in Florida, I think is also going to be extremely important.
Annie, thank you so much. Drive safely.
Thank you.
Grateful
I
to
made
you.
it.
Grateful to you for joining. First of all, let me ask you, I brought in Michael Bix and Chris because just luck of the draw. We've called a lot of Trump people today, and there's no better antidote for balance on the program than those two guys. But Jeanette Rodriguez, am I pronouncing your first name correctly? Jeanette?
Yes, Janice Rodriguez.
All right. Are you a Harris supporter or a Trump supporter, or neither?
I'm a Trump supporter, and I am Sarasota, Florida, getting ready for this hurricane.
Yeah.
Oh my word!
Yeah, you should be gone already. I hope you and your family are safe. Did you support Trump in 20 or 16?
Yes, both of them.
Both of them. All right. I'm unmuting Michael Bix. and Chris. Guys, you're in charge of this segment. Ask Jeanette some questions. What would you like to ask her?
Well, I have a question for actually the experts, which is when can Kamala sort of turn the page to climate change? Because these two storms are are related to something that basically Donald Trump denies exists, which is climate change. And
I hope she does that today.
Well, no, not today. Clearly not today, but that's an existential threat.
Yeah, it is. And it's a hard one for our most skilled politicians who believe it's an existential threat to win. But to win it in the last month of a campaign with no visible public record and with people suffering, I think would be a big challenge.
But on the other hand, these two storms, when you look at the experts, it used to be probably caused by climate change. Now, basically these back-to-back storms are being caused by a warmer Gulf of Mexico, which is being caused by climate change. And at some stage, if you're interested in protecting American people,
all right, Michael, hold on.
How do you make that an issue?
Michael's in New Hampshire. Jeanette, what do you feel about climate change being the cause of you having to board up your house and leave?
I'm sorry, I don't believe in climate change. I'm in Florida, so I just don't believe that. I don't believe in climate change. It changes all the time. I don't care about that. I really don't.
Denial is a river in Egypt.
Mr. Simmons, would you like to ask Jeanette the question? Your neighbor to the south?
I'd have several, but One question I have for Jeanette is, what is it that most troubles you about Kamala?
She's fake. She's scripted. She gives a lot of word salad. And she's from California, for goodness sakes, San Francisco. How does that not bother anyone?
And so her apparent fakeness bothers you more than Trump's out and out frequent lying and fabricating and insulting?
She lies though. She lies. And the thing about it, what makes me upset, and I'm a Hispanic woman, is that the media, everybody treats the American people like we're idiots. We see it. And that's what makes us even more angry. And now that we have this thing happening, this hurricane happening, and it's just, I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm just rambling on.
Do you have children?
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Wait a minute. Do you have children, Jeanette?
Yes, I have. Well, 4, and I have 3 grandchildren.
So let me ask you this question as a Latina woman.
Mm-hmm.
Which party, when they get in control, is going to make sure that corporate America might hire your brown children? The Republicans or the Democrats?
Well, I want a party that is going to hire the right people. To me, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what somebody has between their legs.
But you know that, but you do realize,
and if one of my kids are not qualified, I don't want them in that job.
But you do realize that for decades until recently in this country, it didn't matter if you were qualified. It didn't matter whether you were a woman or brown.
It doesn't matter to me. I just, and I think that's why Hispanics are going, away from. We don't think like that. We think of qualifications. We don't think about women, men. I don't care. I really don't care. And I love a strong man. And Kamala does not give me that.
Are you involved in politics at all? Are you active in politics?
A little. Well, I tell people about it. I talk to my family about it. I tell people how we feel. My husband. Yeah, a little bit. Just I'm
and where are you evacuating to?
Well, we're not evacuating, so we are
Do you live in zone 3?
Zone C. Zone A
C.
and B are evacuating.
Yeah, I meant C. Sorry.
I'm at C, so Did they issue, my husband's just telling me, did they just issue us an evacuation? Oh, they just issued us an evacuation,
yeah.
but so we're not going.
Where will you go if you need to go?
I don't know. We can't. I mean, everybody's just trying to leave and it's just chaos out there. Our home we're pretty safe here. We did it for Ian. I mean, it's okay. We're okay. We're survivors. But yes, I just wanted to say thank you to you guys and to you also for for this site.
All right. Well, we're grateful. How'd you find out about the morning meeting?
Well, I used to watch you on MSNBC and then Newsmax, and then I go on YouTube because I hate the media. So when I saw that you just popped out, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I was really excited. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you here. We hope you're safe. I don't want to override your governor or your mayor, but I'd recommend you think about evacuating.
I don't know. Thank you. God bless you.
Okay. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Our voices, our Harris voices, Michael Bix, New Hampshire, Chris Simmons in Georgia. This episode has not been the most bullish on Kamala Harris's chances. And I love watching Chris's face when Janelle talked. So I'm playing poker with you this weekend, my friend, if you're going to be that open about what's going on. So how are you guys feeling? Are you feeling concerned, or are you think what we've said is overblown? Chris?
No, I'm very concerned. I watched the interview, the 60 Minutes. I think her answers are fine, but she and the Democrats in general, they don't know how to just really pin the issue that is in other people's minds. They keep communicating as if they are starting from a good place with people. So to answer your first question, Mark, which is really why I raised my hand in the first place, those two commercials, those commercials aren't about healthcare. They are a weak attempt to say Trump doesn't care about you, the little man. Why don't they just say that? Trump doesn't care about you, the little man. Jim Carville needs to be running the campaign.
Yeah. I mean, she says it in her rally. She says when you listen to Trump, he just talks about himself. But you're right.
Should have said it yesterday.
Yeah.
But
Michael, how are you feeling?
Here's the final point I want to make about why I don't feel good.
Yeah.
Two things can be true at the same time, and I think they're very present right now. She can run a mediocre campaign and be an average candidate. I think that both of those are true. But that's not why she might lose. And the reason she might really lose, I don't think she can do a whole lot about. And it relates to why Biden might be right when he says, I could be doing just as well. Because there are two things that he is that she'll never be: a white man.
Yes, sir. That puts a ceiling on her. It puts a ceiling on her vote. Might be higher than Trump's ceiling, but it puts a ceiling on her vote. And she's avoided it at the convention, right? It wasn't about historic first. She's avoided it, but it is the pair of elephants in the room. There's no doubt. But I also think she'd help herself if she weren't a mediocre candidate.
Agreed.
Yeah. Michael, how are you feeling?
I'm as concerned as I was, the day she announced. This is going to be a tough election. Listen, next week you'll be talking about how Trump is screwing up. It goes up, it goes down each day. So, I don't worry about it. Because if you look at the New York Times poll, by the way, it's actually, they're categorizing it as 4 points. That basically it's not, it's 3 percentage points, but when you put in the rounding error, they say it's 4. So, okay, that's like up 4 points from the last. In other words, who knows? I know you guys talk about the private polling and this, that, but polling is such a mess at the moment in terms of who you pick, like how do you wait past things? Who picks up?
Yeah.
So, of course I'm concerned. I'm concerned because I've got kids and I'm worried about the future and I'm worried about our democracy. So
yeah. All right, hold on. We're going to sneak one more person in. Floria, welcome. Tell folks where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
Hi, my name is Floria Graham, and I'm from New York, and I'm going to be voting for Donald Trump.
Somehow I knew you were going to say that. You live in New York City?
I do. I live in Harlem, born and raised.
Just because if I call on anybody but Chris Simmons or Michael Bix, they're all for Donald Trump today for some reason. Have you voted for Donald Trump in the past?
I certainly have.
Yeah. And how do you think he's going to do amongst your friends and family?
Most of my family are registered Democrats, and they voted Republican for Trump, and they're going to do it this time as well. I grew up in, as most Black people do, I grew up with
Hold on, we've lost your audio.
Oh, sorry.
At least I have. Yeah, okay, you're back. You're back now. Go ahead.
Okay, they're not the party of my parents anymore. They just are not. They've taken, in my opinion, and many people in my circle, and many people in the Black community, were simply not pleased with the Democratic Party. And to me, they come across as a threat, and they are very arrogant about it. You have Democratic supporters that are literally coming on television trying to chip away at our First Amendment rights. That's a threat. And it's just this, they're the ones who constantly use race to bait for votes. I just don't see what Kamala Harris, it's not even just a Democratic Party. I mean, Kamala Harris, it's the Democratic Party. I stopped voting for Democrats after Barack Obama, and I didn't even vote for him the second time.
Do you see Donald Trump as an inspirational leader or just against the Democrats?
I am voting Republican as a protest vote against the Democrats. I was registered as a Democrat, and I changed my registration to Republican only because as an independent in New York, you're not allowed in any of the primaries. So, but I just didn't want any association with him. As for him being an inspiration, I think the Black community, including myself, are just frustrated with election period after election period, Black people voting as a bloc for this party. And ultimately, it seems like nothing. It's nothing. And then, you know, we're told, shut up. It's horrible the way the media and the way entertainers talk to the little Black people for wanting to have a choice, for voicing, wanting to have a choice.
Flora, is there anybody in the Democratic Party who talks about race in a way you respect and appreciate, or you can't think of anybody who does that?
I can't think off the back of my head. No, they're all lockstep in the same way that we should, and we need to vote blue no matter who. And you know, you can't say that we're not a monolith, but you want us to operate and vote as one. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, even when they approach Black people, it's never with policies that are substantive that will help us economically or socially. It's always some the day or statue or something that is non-tangible to us. Black people are at the bottom. That's just the truth. I myself, you know, I did not suffer during all of this. I noticed that the groceries did go up, but I'm in a position where I could, you know, afford it. But I can't say that for most Black people that I'm in contact with. For my family, fortunately enough, we don't, you know, it hasn't affected us the way we see other people, but has it affected? I just don't see the Democratic Party as beneficial. To me, it's like a swap. They have become the party of war. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And this whole thing about abortion, it's the abortion, the January 6th. It's becoming tone deaf. No one is even listening to this anymore. You want us to vote about abortions and a January 6th over our wallets. It just, no, it doesn't add up.
What do you like most about Vice President Harris? What do you find most appealing about her as a public official?
From nothing. I honestly think she's dangerous to Black people based on her record in California as a prosecutor. She was jailing mothers for truancy. You know, she was locking people up and holding them in prison after their time to fight fires. And it's her whole history, especially with Black people in California, has just been whitewashed like it never happened. But it's in black and white. No, I can't consciously think to vote for her. And many Black people I know said the same thing. They would rather not vote or vote down ballot than to vote for her. They find her to be dangerous.
I want to ask you one more question, and I'm going to open it up
Sure.
see if other folks want to. And I appreciate everything you're saying. Super interesting, and glad you joined us. Chris pointed out the other day, Donald Trump, in a television interview, pretended not to know who David Duke was, or at least seemed to. He's the leader of the birther movement to try to use race to convince people that Barack Obama was ineligible to be president. Does that stuff give you any pause about having him in the White House regarding race, or you don't think those are big deals, or just how you factor then to how you think about supporting it? It's
not that I don't factor it in. Listen, Donald Trump is of a certain age. To say that he may not have some kind of racial biases in him, my parents did when they were, and they were older than him. But this whole idea that like he's the only one on the ticket with these ideas is ridiculous. Joe Biden has a rich history of racism, a rich history that's documented. So for me to say I can't vote for Donald Trump would be the same for me to say I can't vote for Joe Biden. At least the one thing we can say is Donald Trump never enacted laws that harmed Black people. You cannot say that about Joe Biden. He was proud to say he orchestrated the 3-strike rule.
Yeah. Chris, you want to ask a question?
Hey, Mark, I apologize. I have to, great conversation. I just have to jump off.
Yeah.
So see you guys back.
Sean, sorry. All right, Sean, thank you. Sorry to go over time.
I'd like to know where your grandparents are from.
All of my family is originated from the South.
Your grandparents were born in the South?
My grandparents were born in the South. And my grandfather, God rest his soul, was a sharecropper. I'm very sure. Before then, his father was a slave.
And your view that many Black people feel the same way, you do realize that Trump got 8% of the Black vote last time. What do you think he's going to get this time?
I said many people in my circle what I talked to.
Oh, okay. Well, what's your guess?
Else.
What percentage of Black people overall do you think he's going to get this time?
He's going to get a greater amount than 8%.
You think it'll be over 15?
I'm not sure about that, but it's going to be greater than what it is. If it's only for a protest against the Democratic Party, if it's only for protest.
So one last, I'll have a question for you. What will be your reaction when at some later point I say that if Trump gets less than 15% of the Black vote, he will be the president of white America, but not Black America?
Tell me what president hasn't been the president of white America, including Barack Obama.
Yeah, but Barack Obama got a lot of the Black vote too, didn't he?
Yes, because we are stuck on imagery, and that's it. And that's
maybe we're stuck on people who don't discriminate in their housing facility against renting the Black vote.
Barack Obama discriminated against Black people. A lot of Black people were disgruntled during his presidency. You
think Barack Obama discriminated against Black people?
He ignored Black people. He did, and that's how many Black people feel. At least many young Black people feel that way.
Well, not enough to get Trump more than 8% last time. I guess the young ones must not be voting.
Well, we'll see this time.
Okay, we'll see.
I'm almost sure he's going to get more than 8%.
All right. Chris, thank you. Gloria, how'd you find out about 2-way in the morning meeting?
It came through the algorithm, but I've always followed you when you were on television.
All right. We appreciate you joining and sharing all that with us. And I love listening to Chris talk respectfully to younger people who are supporting Donald Trump.
I appreciate it.
Chris never, except for the loss of the poker face on a previous comment. Chris is a mainstay here. Chris, thank you for joining. Gloria, thank you. Thanks for everybody that had questions. Lots of hands up we didn't get to. Appreciate all that. I'll be back at 6 tonight for 2-way tonight. We're going to look at Kamala Harris on The View. We're going to look at President Biden talking about the about the storms. Donald Trump, I predict, might pop up, so we'll see what he did today. And of course, Howard Stern, my personal favorite. We'll see how that interview goes. So we'll have all that at 6, and we'll preview again what's happening tomorrow. And Dan, Sean, and I will be back right here, same bad time, same bad channel tomorrow for the morning meeting. Very grateful to everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you at 6 Eastern time tonight.